Hello, so today we are going to go over proper logging on the training syllabus. Now, as you can see, you are going to receive an updated training syllabus first page that will have only the videos that are required by the new day 4 system for the experienced drivers, and of course what the experienced drivers have to go through. This has been updated, as well as the information now is in time format. It's not going to be in decimal form, since we are doing away with decimal form because of the new system for LMS. Now, as you can see, most of the behind the wheel trainers are going to be using the second uh, page of the syllabus, which is the trainee timesheet. Now, the training timesheet, this is where you're going to be logging your minutes and hours for what you do in those specific courses, like pre-trip and post-trip, maneuvering and reference points, checking brakes, and backing. Now, I'm going to show you some examples of what it would look like when you properly fill out your timesheet. All right. And so, first thing you do before you even start filling out the hours in the courses that you went over is you need to make sure that you're initialing above the date and you're dating before you move into logging. You need to make sure that your date is in and you initial above the date before you even start putting in any of your time on that sheet. Okay? We need to know what trainer has trained that day, and the only way to know that is by making sure that you initial above the date that you're putting in. If you're not putting the date or you're initialing, you shouldn't even be logging hours. Okay? Now, once you have these two stipulations met, now you can start putting your hours in the courses that you are actually covering that day. As you can see, everything kind of flows. There are a couple things that you can do. Um, a little bit out of order, but not too much, which is adding a little bit of the brake check and a little bit of the backing in on your first day. As you can see, most of this stuff, and this is actually from a live report that we've seen, some of these things get covered in their day 2. Also, on their 4th or 5th day, they do go over child check and emergency evacuation. So you'll see this. Christine usually is going to be the classroom trainer. So you'll see this being done a lot where she's already kind of touching on some of these points in classroom. All right. After class, but this is the thing about classroom. Classroom trainer Christine is already aware that she is not allowed to clear out or evaluate um, courses. So she's only entering in time. It's up to you, the trainer who gets them day 1, to see, have they met their hours? Did we meet the key points and information that they're supposed to? And if so, then you can then go and clear out pre-trip or checking brakes or backing once they've met those two key points. Okay, as you can see, most of these individuals will probably meet their pre-trip and post-trip inspection minimum hours before they even get to you. But that is not Christine's judgment call. It is the behind the wheel trainer who takes them on, who will actually be the one who has to decide whether they've met their hours and they've already received the key points and information that they have to be able to evaluate them and complete them in the system for day force. All right. As you can see, you'll start off with probably giving a lot of time to pre-trip, post-trip, and your brake test, which is understandable. And then you'll just be slowly working your hours down. You need to make sure that you've met your time and hours and information in the closed course section before you even decide to move on to the on the road. The only on the road sections that you could possibly move past if you haven't filled your time and hours in for the closed course section is the child check system and the emergency evacuation. But even the emergency evacuation, I would wait until you're in the on the road training. Now I'll show you what the second page of the training, the timesheet looks like. So as you're past the first section and you realize that you've met all your hours in the last form, you'll now start to see that you'll start to get in and dabble into the hours that you need for the on the road section, which is going to be LLC and safety best practices, intersections, backing, bus stops, and danger zones. which is their policy or their driving procedures with loading, unloading, things like that. Also, you're going to start getting more to logging their child check post trip. Now, that being said, if you noticed when on this first week sheet, you notice that I bolt their training for checking for children. You want to make sure that you're giving them at least 15 minutes for the first two sessions of going over child check. And then after that, you can just be documenting it daily by putting your 5 here, 5 minutes there at the end of every day. But you want to at least be able to give them 15 minutes of you having them initiate the child check system, going pushing the button, explaining to them what it really is, making sure that they are where they need to, and then clearing it off if you can. All right. But if for some reason you still feel like they need to work on it, you want to try to make sure that they reach their hours within at least the first two sessions of having them. If not, you need to give that to them before you start just logging 5 minutes here and there. It becomes hard to constantly be adding in 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes when you're logging it in day force. So try to also, it doesn't look good when they're only getting 5 minutes of talk time about something that's super important. So please make sure that you're giving them at least 10 to 15 minutes, at least for the first 2 to 3 sessions that you have them. All right, and then as you go through, you'll start to see that you can come back and do a little bit more emergency evacuations once you start to kind of start doing the on the road stuff. If you feel like you need more, you can always add in what more time you need. If you feel like they didn't get all the information for emergency evacuations and or all the key points, even though they've met all their hours from being in classroom and also doing it with you for 20 minutes, you can continue that and not clear them off. Um, Remember, it's the behind the wheel trainer's responsibility to complete and evaluate them out of the LMS system. So make sure that you understand that if you do see that they've met their hours for that specific course and they've met all the information that they're required to know, then you're completing them out and evaluating them out of the system. All right? And then once you do, make sure that you are going to the training syllabus front page and you are putting the date that they met their hours. So as you can see for the first week, you did your pre-trip and after that you were just doing your repetition training of 30 minutes going over trying to get it down. So they would have met with Martha on the 9th. So you're going to come as soon as you clear them out of the LMS system. You'll put the date that you completed them and evaluated them out of the system for Dayforce, and you're going to put the initials of the trainer. You need to be doing this as you're completing them in the Dayforce LMS system. All right, and then if you want, as just a telltale sign for the other trainers, you can come and highlight the section that you cleared off so that they know that you're never going to have to. But trainers can also go to the front page as they're logging and see, okay, I went through all these sections. I went over pre-trip, maneuvering, reference points, and checking your brakes. But since I see that Martha cleared off the pre-trip and post-trip, I don't have to log anything for there, so I'll just log in and see if they need to be completed for maneuvering and the checking your brakes, okay? You need to be looking at the front page to see if people have completed them out of the system. Also, if you're completing them out of the system, you are expected to put the date you completed them out of the system and where they've met their information in hours, and you need to initial off, okay? I'm going to be very strict when it comes to making sure that you are documenting on the paper when you're clearing people out and completing them and evaluating them out of the system. Now, we are going to move on to some of the issues that we usually see with the training syllabus that we want to get away with. Why do we want to go in a fluid motion, starting from the bottom, making sure we meet our criteria and information for closed course before we move into on the road? All right. So here's one of the issues we have, which is moving ahead, which is where you're putting in backing and on the road before you're even finishing up backing and closed cone courses, and that doesn't look good. That means that you got them out on the road and was having them back before you even did any kind of cone or closed course with them on backing. That's not looking good. So, and from my standpoint, from corporate standpoint, that's a big red flag. You're putting them on the road before you should even be, before they've even been gone over any kind of reference points or backing. So that is a big issue. If you are moving ahead and going into on the road before you've met your criteria and hours for the closed course section, you need to stop. You are not allowed to start going into LLC intersections or backing a bus up before you complete the closed course section. If you're using cones like serpentine, you're backing and stuff that's done in a closed course setting with cones, that needs to be documented here. When you're out on the road and you're going over the information on backing and loading, unloading procedures and bus stops and danger zones, that stuff is going to go here. What's the policy for backing when you're out there? What do they need to do? That stuff that will go here when they're on the road. But when you're actually going to be backing with cone courses for their buildup, that needs to be documented here before you even move over to start logging backing for the on the road portion. And then, of course, now here's another example of what trainers shouldn't be doing when they're logging hours. They're logging hours, but the hours aren't adding up. If you're given 4 hours to train someone in a day and you're logging on your sheet 5 to 6 hours, that doesn't make sense. All right, here's an example of a training sheet that was too many hours. And this is real live what we've seen out there on these training syllabus as we're going through and auditing them. All right, we'll see that they got 40 minutes here, and then they had 2 hours for LLC and safety best practices, and then another 2 hour, an hour for intersections, and then they had an hour and a half in backing bus stops and danger zones. And so that gives you already with these three 4 hours now, 4.5 hours, and that's well over you being out there past 1:30. But now you have 40 minutes here that you have to account for, and then that's going to put you up to almost 2. And if we go back on that day and we know that you did not work those almost 5 hours that day, we know that that's not adding up. Okay, so when I'm assuming that this individual may have done driving LLC, but then they part of that driving LLC, an hour of it was also going over intersections. But instead of putting this as 1 hour here and then putting this as 1 hour of LLC, they just put 2 hours for driving because they thought, oh well, I'm driving around for 2 hours. But then during that 2 hours, one of the hours was me also going over intersections. You can't do that. You have to break that time apart. Okay? So you can only log, if you're going to give an hour of your driving time to intersections, you need to take away that hour from that you're putting into the LLC and driving and safety best practices. You can't put the same hour for different courses. Okay? So you need to make sure that you're documenting correctly. You're not putting too many hours. So say I ended up and I was driving down the road, all right, and I was just driving for 4 hours, and out of that 4 hours, I put 1 hour was going over intersections and U-turns, and then the other 3 I can put for actually the LLC and safety best practices. This makes sense. You're putting a little bit of the time towards intersections, and then the other rest of the 4 hours is going towards LLC and safety best practices. This is how it should be logged. We shouldn't be seeing you logging 2 hours that you went over driving LLC and then logging an hour of intersections. You have to do one and one. You got to split that time apart, okay? That is one of the issues that we're also coming into contact with when it comes to auditing your timesheets. So please make sure you're really looking at your times you're putting in. If it goes over 4 hours, I'm automatically suspicious, okay? If you have any questions about how you should be logging properly, please reach out to your HR training manager or your lead with questions, and we will go from there. Thank you and have a great day.